What's going on? G Money Richie back on the track. Happy Sunday once again. And in today's video, I want to touch on the idea of delayed identity, right? Obviously, as you and I both know, that most people actually want external validation instead of solid internal transformation. And I'm going to explain a little bit why that's important later on in the video. But the first thing you should realize, bro, is that the strongest identity, and what I've realized in myself and other people who are 10 times more successful, is the one that's forged in silence, bro. You're not broadcasted throughout the whole process, because if it is broadcasted throughout the whole process, there's a lot of different problems that go into that, and I'll dive into that a little bit later in this video as well. But, people should be confused when you pop out with results, man, and that's how you know you did it right, But for me personally, like, I find so much more peace, when everything is internalized, right? When I have an internal transformation inside of my mind, opposed to one that's, you know, backed by people from the external and validating my efforts and all that kind of stuff. Because when I first started my self development journey, I was actually hoping that people would recognize my efforts to a much, much, much higher degree, right? But that kind of way of thinking truly just let me down, man, because the more important thing is to really see change in yourself, opposed to having a dire need of people validating it and applauding you when you do something good, when you do something extraordinary in other people's eyes. Because if you are relying on the validation of people that are not where you want to be, then you're going to get validated for just average amount of work. You're going to get validated for mediocrity. And that's probably why I stayed mediocre for a long time, because I was getting validated from people who were settling for mediocrity, right? People in my family, people in my friends, all that kind of stuff. And I love them to death. But if I'm going to seek validation from anybody, I should be seeking validation from somebody who is making 50K a month and gaining their respect for the work that I put in and the systems and the businesses that I built. That's the only thing I should be seeking validation from, not the average, not the fucking average. So it's a tough state of mind to be in, bro. It's a very tough state of mind to be in. The one thing that kind of used to happen to me a lot, and the way to really document, I guess, to find out how you're transforming internally, is if you're a guy, a girl who kind of overthinks about certain jokes, and when people make certain jokes about you, certain comments about your appearance, your weight, your height, the businesses, ideas that you're starting, whatever it may be, and you internalize those jokes, and those jokes actually start to make you overthink, and you overthink them for a day or two. That used to be me. I can relate to that. Yeah, I used to overthink things for weeks. You know what I mean? Until I started realizing that, we're on space, we're in space, we're a floating rock, so none of that should even fucking matters. But besides the point, what happens when you start to take a different approach of actually seeking internal transformation opposed to leaning on other people to validate your efforts, is that those jokes no longer start to affect you. Those same jokes for me are still made to me to this day about all those things I used to overthink in the past. But the best feeling in the world is being able to have thick skin. And having thick skin comes on leaning on yourself and giving yourself the evidence that you can do X, Y, and Z that people tell you that you can't do. That you can be somebody that people don't think you can even be. And that's where the true internal transformation comes from, right? And not having to broadcast that to the world and delaying the identity so it just oozes through you, the inverse is going to start to happen, where people are going to validate you for your results, but not in a diminishing way, in a way that's not going to stop you from making progress, because you're chasing validation from yourself and from people that are doing 20, 30, 40, 50 times better than you, right? That's the whole difference here. And an actionable step that you can take, is actually to start a documentation, whether it's copying me and starting a whole channel where you can actually see my development in my philosophy, as a young man myself, or just writing down your thoughts on a week-to-week basis. Because if you don't have much to look back on or much to lean on with your progress, then all you have left is to lean on other people. That's weak. That's weak. You can't lean on other people when it comes to your philosophy, when it comes to your progress, when it comes to your improvement, because it's just inevitably going to fall. Why? Humans are fickle. Two, the people aren't going to care about your doubts, and people don't have. You're a selfish motherfucker if you think that someone's going to care about your goals and your doubts and overcoming your mental hurdles more than you do. So you need to start documenting your own progress and seeking your own validation. So the totem pole that you lean on is stronger than people's validation, because people's validation and leaning on other people for support is just so weak. It's not going to amount to nothing. So understand that a good identity, an identity with a foundation, is built in silence. It's not broadcasted to the world. And a stronger identity, you can lean on yourself for that support that you need. You don't need to lean on anybody else. Sure, you can have people in your life that are going to be there for you, but at the end of the day, what happens when they leave? You need to have yourself. So, love you guys. Start off tomorrow strong. Peace.